This sort of story started 20 years ago, it started because I was concerned and confused. Actually, after 20 years, I'm more concerned now at what's happening. I've travelled 133 countries in the last 20 years, and I'm worried and sad at the sort of things that we see that are going on. And we've just got to try and do everything that we can. No matter how bad the situation is, I'm getting up every day excited and enthused at the concept of just sort of making a difference. How many people can we engage in the process? How many people can we inspire? How many people can we empower? How many young people can we get them to believe that they could be the driving force behind a united and sustainable world? And that's what all the work's about. So right at the beginning, as I said to you, is humankind fundamentally evil, is the destruction of the world inevitable, etc. I thought, okay, I'm going to make a film about peace. I'm going to make a film about peace, and I'm going to go around the world, I'm going to ask people, how did you make sense of it? What are you saying to your children? How do you make sense of what you're seeing? Please, inform me. And therefore, the viewer would be informed by hearing those thoughts. But then I realised that a film about just those things, that wasn't enough. There was no mountain, there was no journey. And I'd known from being an actor that it was all about structure, and there needed to be a sort of a destination that you had to arrive to. So I started to think about where was the starting point for peace? Where was the starting point for intercultural cooperation, which the academics were saying is key to humanity's survival? Where was the starting point for global unity? A moment separate from politics and religion where we stand together as one. And that creates hope and belief. And the young people go, wow, we are united. We are a global family. And out of that, in their minds, they think beautiful things about how we might be able to save. It's a sort of an inspirational moment. And I thought, okay, I'll try and create that day. I'll take my film camera. I knew nothing about nothing. We had no money whatsoever. But I'll try and create that day. And then I found out about the United Nations. Literally, I had no really idea what it was. I mean, I know that sounds like, really? You didn't know but I kind of really didn't know anything about this sort of stuff. But I knew that there was this place called the General Assembly of the United Nations, and I thought, okay, that's what we'll do. We'll see if we can go out there on the road and we'll talk to everybody, and we'll write letters, and we were playing guitars and doing poetry. We had no money, and we were writing to everyone. And very quickly, a lot of people, but one of the first was His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, look, come to India. This is a good idea. A day like this is a good idea. Come. We didn't have any money, so I wrote to this guy. I found out who was running BA. It was a guy called Sir Bob Ailing. I wrote to him. I said, look, I've got no money. I've got to go see the Dalai Lama. Could I have a ticket? Could I have a plane? I'm not a plane, a ticket, a seat on a plane. And he said, yeah, okay, well, that sounds fascinating. Yeah, we'll give you a ticket. And me and my crew, we went to India, and the Dalai Lama came on board. And then Dr. Oscar Arias said the same. And then Shimon Peres said the same. And then Kofi Annan, and then Mary Roberts, and then Amre Musa. And it just went on and on and on. And suddenly, before you know it, we were gaining momentum. We were in Somalia, we were in Gaza, we were everywhere. And what was happening is people were saying, this is a good idea. If we could create this day, then humanitarian activity could take place. If we created this day, then children would be inspired in the classroom. If we created this day, then there could be a moment of interfaith, and so on and so on. And we built the case till eventually, after years of work, the British government and the Costa Rican government put that idea forward to the United Nations General Assembly, and the world was created. So this was the sort of first moment. I'm actually just remembering I've got the slides here. But anyway, this was the sort of first moment where we had created the day in 2001. And then what we did is we went to, I could hear the cynics. I could hear the cynics saying, yeah, so the Day of Peace was created. In 2001, the entire world unanimously adopted this day. It was amazing. It was an amazing moment. And in fact, on the 7th of September, so the 7th of September, the world creates this day. On the 11th of September, Kofi Annan says to me, okay, come to the United Nations, and on that morning, we'll announce to the world's press that the day had been created. I was there, the cameras were running, it was about 8 a.m. in the morning, and of course we all know what happened. The planes hit the building, we were in New York, I was at the UN, and we were evacuated. It was a mind-mode moment, but it made me realise how important the work was, how important it was to unite and come together as one, given that everything else was dividing us. So it wasn't like, that fall had been something that made me go, okay, well, it's pointless, isn't it? Look at the World Trade Centers, they've just fallen. I mean, and all of the terrible suffering that happened all over the place as a consequence of that. That was no reason to stop. And in fact, the greatest thing that I speak about with young people all the time is actually failing is everything. Those dark moments, the darkest moments are the moments where we know exactly what we've got to do and who we are. And I think that the beautiful thing about no's are much more interesting than yeses for me. This whole process, these 20 years, the no's have always been the moment where actually the light went on. The dark moment, and there's been a few, have been the moments where actually creativity and thought, came, and it was just everything. And so I think wherever we are in our lives, in our own personal lives, those moments, I think as long as we can breathe in them and feel safe enough to continue, then they are definitely the space where peace can occur and greatness comes. And I'm living my life like that. The climber who climbs the mountain, he doesn't care about the drop. He's not thinking about the top. He's actually just thinking about the grip. And I think that's actually what it's all about. I think it's about each grip and each moment, no matter, and I think that's what this 20 years has taught me, and that's what this 20 years has been all about. And actually, there's some things I'm going to talk to you about in a second that are really interesting, that come out of that darkness. And I sort of feel blessed that I was able to see and feel what I have in this period, some of which I'd never seen, but certainly has fueled me to continue. So once the day of being created, I could hear the cynic, as I said, saying, yeah, it's just another day, it's meaningless. It's meaningless. And that was really a concern. They were saying it was meaningless because actually people don't believe in peace. People don't believe that peace is possible. I'm not saying all of you do, but I'm just saying that even though we created the day, people are like, yeah, all right, peace day, that's not going to work. And that's why we went to Afghanistan. I spent a couple of years, going to Afghanistan, taking Jude Law with me to see if we could get the Taliban to agree not to kill anybody on the day. I mean, if we could do that, then really the cynic had nothing to say. And in fact, cynicism is really very interesting. I think the cynic is like that person who's saying no. They are the fuel. They are the reason why you have to kind of, keep on going. And I understand that somebody would be cynical. I mean, look at the world. Why wouldn't you be cynical in terms of what we're seeing and what's going on? I mean, it's okay. It's okay. But we can still prove that actually it's possible. And after years of work, NATO and ISAF and Karzai and the UN system and civil society, everybody agreed not to kill or kidnap anybody on that day, particularly, of course, the Taliban. And as a consequence of the Taliban saying we won't kill or kidnap, UNICEF and WHO were able to take 10,000 vaccinators into areas of conflict that you couldn't normally go, and 1.4 million children were given the polio vaccination as a consequence of that. And I knew at that point that it was done. It was like, okay, there we are. We've created this day, and it was unanimously adopted by every government of the world. This is the world's day of ceasefire and non-violence. This is the day when we protect each other, and this is the day when we protect our environment, etc. And then to see, what happened in Afghanistan, it was just a game-changing moment. Nobody at any point from there on was able to say anything different other than, wow, let's do more of that. But when that happened in Afghanistan, there was an interesting thing that the UN's Department of Security and Safety announced a 70% reduction of violent incidents in the country. A 70% reduction of violent incidents. And that fascinated me. And it was suddenly the moment where measurement became everything to me. Like 70%, you've actually recorded that? Wow, that's incredible. So if we can record that, maybe we can record that on a bigger scale. And that's what got me into talking with McKinsey and sitting down with them and trying to work out what this really meant. Like how many people, what we looked at was saying, okay, well, how many people are we exposing to the day? How many people are being exposed by this message? How many people are remembering this message? And how many people, as a result of that, are then going to change their behavior? Which is a methodology that McKinsey's are obviously using for all the big corporations of the world, right? I mean, that's what they're doing. They are saying, okay, well, how many people remember the advert as you drive past it in your car? How many people are then going to, how many people are going to see it? How many people are going to remember it? And then how many people are going to purchase? That methodology is the methodology we were utilizing around the Day of Peace. And it became really incredible because what I learned was we could expose a load of people on an annual basis. But we could then work out how many people had remembered that was the day. But most importantly of all, we could find out how many people were less violent as a consequence of the day. And then then suddenly the light went on. I mean, it's like, wow. We were recording around, 16 million people not involved in violence when they would have normally been. So we now was finding out that this was the day when more people thought about peace than any other day of the year. It was also the day where there's the greatest reduction of violence on any given day. The greatest reduction of violence on any given day. That was incredible. And how did we measure that? Well, a perfect example is in a school. So a school that's acknowledging the day and is inspiring their young people through their art, their poetry, their literature, their sport, their music, whatever it might be, ends up becoming much more peaceful. And then the school writes to us and said there's no bullying on the day. which was amazing. I mean, because actually what you start to then work out is actually that 95% of the violence that's going to happen today is going to happen in our homes, communities, schools, and places of work. That's where the violence is. Only 5% of the violence that will happen today will happen in an area of conflict. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, like, wow, you know what I mean? Like, what is going on? And then, of course, we'll talk about the cyber world in a second. But, so this, then suddenly, like every day, every single day, I mean, just getting up and gunning it to tell as many people as possible, because whoever we tell, all of you have social media, all of you work for interesting companies or whatever it is that you do, and all of you have the ability to say, okay, well, on the 21st of September, my family's going to observe this day. And in fact, you know what? We're going to get our friends together, or we're going to tell our colleagues in the workplace, please do it. Please, on the 21st of September, do that. Because your actions will change behavior, and people are going to be more peaceful. And that's just the result of it. And so, I don't know, the first big thing that we did was Coca-Cola. It took years. It's in the film, The Day After Peace, if you watch it. I mean, that was a real drama, making that happen. What have I just done? This was a wonderful moment. This is Adidas and Puma making peace together, the first time in 70 years. Those two companies fell out with each other. They weren't friends, but they made friends, and it was epic. And Jochen Zeitz, wonderful CEO, in fact, part of Kruger, he's an amazing man. An amazing, amazing man, and he pulled all that together. And in fact, if you ask Jochen, he'll say, the thing that I got most press for, when it didn't cost me a penny, was making peace with Adidas. I mean, it was incredible. This is Make Love Not War. Paul Polman put this together. Amazing. I know, I think it was a £72 million spend, 58 countries, mobilised massive amounts of people. This was huge. This was the most successful campaign that Burger King had ever run in their history, the Whopper. It was a Big Mac and a Whopper sandwiched together, and the two companies were, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But it was huge, and the money was good. I mean, it was keeping us going. I mean, it's not massive amounts of money, but I think they generated £125 million of earned media for doing it. It was huge. I mean, some of you will have heard of it and know about it, but every single advertising award, it won everything. It just won everything. It was amazing. I don't know, last year we did a huge concert with iHeartRadio, with Fleetwood Mac and Mariah Carey and Justin Timberlake. I mean, it's, a lot of people finding out about this stuff. Ocado on the back of every van, innocent drinks, Skype. I mean, with the big shows that we'd be doing every year, I hope you'll come to the 21st of September 20-year celebration at Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. It'll be absolutely amazing. I can't tell you who's performing, but it's unbelievable. And Jude and Mark Rylance and everybody together. I mean, real moment for us. When it began at Shakespeare's Globe Theatre 20 years ago, because Mark was a mate of mine. I knew him, Mark Rylance. You know Mark Rylance. He won the Oscar for Bridge of Spies, an amazing man. Amazing, wonderful actor, ran Shakespeare's Globe, and he began it with me 20 years ago at Shakespeare's Globe. There was we invited thousands of people, and 114 people turned up, and they were mostly my mates. So I'm hoping that 20 years later we'll be in the Globe, where there'll be far more than 114 people. But anyway, this is how we were doing it. This was really pushing it. On Peace Day this year, Google will tell Facebook will tell around 2 billion people. Right, so this is institutionalization, and it's important, and why it's important, and why it's exciting, and why when I look at this do I think, well, actually, this fueled us, but most importantly of all, it helped really push it out there. For me, the corporate sector, the business sector, doing well by doing good, this whole area is fascinating and immensely important. Really important. I mean, the speed of which, and it could be faster, that they're doing impact and values, that whole thing that they're thinking about, that Pullman's talking about, it's about profit, but it's actually about impact. It's wonderful that he's doing that. Because, if greed got us in this problem in the first place, it may well be greed in terms of, well, I better be, hot on impact because I can't recruit great talent unless my company has a policy that is really solid. So they're driven by the opportunity of doing better, and that's a good thing. It's not just like a kind of, I've woken up to the world's issues. It's not actually just about that. It's good for business. Peace is very profitable, and I think that people are understanding that, and that's a solid thing. The way in which we did it, so you've seen that corporations paying for it. It's all about these different areas. So whether it's getting, AK-47s and, decommissioning them, and then Damien Hirst painting it, or Anthony Gormley, or, Sam Taylor Wood, or whatever it was. Man, I'm running out of time. Damn. Sorry, I'll go back there. So it's, music, social media, life-saving activity, education materials in 133 countries right now as we speak with young people. We've mobilised young people in 188 countries at this point, right now. On Peace Day, there'll be young people in 193 member states of the UN. Unbelievable. I mean, just amazing. What a beautiful thought. And I hope that your children or your nieces and nephews or whatever, get them involved. Tell the school that your kids go to or your brother's children, whatever it all is. Some people look really young, but you know what I'm saying. Just get everyone involved. I've got a couple of minutes left, and I'm just going to tell you two little things because it's now about technology for me. It's really, we're about to change our relationships with Interbrand. We're about to change the whole look and feel of Peace One Day and the logo and everything around September. We're really excited at the end of those 20 years to do that. And it's cyber violence. On the 21st of September, we'll try and decrease violence in the cyber world. And I'd love to tell you more about the partners that are going to do that and how we're going to measure it. But if you can measure 70% in Afghanistan, it would be really interesting to see what we can do around the hate speech, the bullying, the racism that exists in this space. And on the 21st of September, on a global scale, decrease negativity and increase positivity. Ever so excited by that. And then lastly, to just tell you is about impact profile. So basically, we created a piece of technology. We're piloting it right now. We'll launch it properly on the 21st September. But when you look at a person, at the moment I look and I go, the LinkedIn account about their business is really interesting, and I can see that they're quite wealthy. They've got a nice house and a big bank account, etc. And those are the sort of I look and I go, But actually, there's something ever so special when you look through the kaleidoscope of colour that a human is about their impact and their values, their donating, their choices about humanity's survival. What if we created a profiling system that when we looked at a person, we looked at them and went, wow, the difference that you're making, the contribution that you're about, the things that you do to make a better world, a better community are extraordinary, and I want you working for me. Because if the corporations are talking about impacts and values, then why wouldn't there be a profiling system that recognises for Paul Polman when he looks at somebody, he goes, wow, you are amazing. And the things that you do, that's the person we want in our business. It's a LinkedIn, but for change makers. It's a social media for social good, and it's epic and it's exciting, and it has wonderful people around it. And I hope we can establish a new system, a new legacy system in this world that when you look at a person, you go, wow, I really want to be friends with you, I want to work with you, etc., etc. Look, 20-year celebration, lots of things going on. He stood up, I got to stop. Okay, thank you very much.